I know you've read the title, and no, technically this game is not pay to win, but you know what? Let me explain that real quickly. So if y'all don't know, ages ago, I've talked about this very same topic when it comes to Crossout in its current state, and that was 6 years ago, back when we just had no seasons, and it was just packs, and it was 6 factions, the engineers, those lovely cantankerous nomads, and all those lovely things here. But essentially, the crux of the whole video was that this game is technically not pay to win because anything that you can get in this game, you can buy on the market, whether that be legendary parts, epic parts, just scrap rewards, accessories, whatever you can get from the shop, you can get in the part. Buy any of this stuff in here, congratulations, it can be bought and sold on this. So if you wanted to get anything from those packs, you can get it. And additionally, on top of that, anything you do buy has its own individual power score and variety of perks and benefits. So even if you were to buy something, it doesn't necessarily mean you get to use it at whatever power score and be a pro at it. Very far from it. If you try to buy a legendary part and then just slap it on the starter car that only has like a very crappy huntsman cabin, congratulations, you're not really going to be able to get a whole lot from here. Like, slap a legendary on this bad boy, and I guarantee you're still going to get blown the truck up real easily. So it still requires a high degree of skill, either in just maneuvering the car, positioning tactics, as well as just building the car itself. You got to be able to build artfully around the particular quirks of your weapons that sometimes even change just based off physical size, energy requirements, and what have you based off your hardware choices. So even if in that case, it is still technically not pay to win because you really can't pay to get any sort of definite advantage. But the thing is that while that is on technically side of thing here true, there is still the idea of paying to progress, in the sense that this game is very grind intensive in order for you to make a lot of progress to these higher tier parts, especially with the recent proclivity of making epic tier, legendary tier, and relic tier parts way more common. Then the pay to progress just starts to feel a little bit less and less fair. And the thing is, when people talk about pay to win, they're not necessarily talking about the technical aspects of pay to win, because that we already agree is not pay to win. But the thing is, most people feel that the high grind is pay to win just based off vibes. And it's kind of understandable, because this game is quite intense to grind here. You have to grind out the Engineers factions, the Nomad factions, Lunatic, and Scavengers, and then after that, then you get access to the Seven Wolves, Dawn Children, and Firestarters. These all have various armor parts, they all have various blueprints, and they all have various weapons and hardwares and wheels that all can be very advantageous when you're going out in there into the wasteland. And so if you're not optimally grinding out these things with the flags and all the accessories that you can have in your inventory that give you an extra 25% to your reputation gain, this can take, you know, effectively months for the average person to get up there to level 30, which that gives you the 80 parts cap, which is necessary for making a lot of heavy builds here. Because 80 parts means that you can get more on your car, design your car more artisanally here, as well as especially if you're using like heavy cabins, be able to fully load up your car to get as much durability as humanly possible. And the thing is, I would love to come in here and say that, oh yes, the grind has lessened down here, so that pay to progress to slight pay to win mentality has actually decreased. But the thing is, that's not really become the case. So ever since then, these things called seasons have cropped up onto the scenes, and they can pose a bit of a issue with that, because while during the season being active and you have the ability to get here and grind out all the levels, congratulations, you can actually make a fair bit of progress that, you know, other times would have taken you so long to grind out and actually be able to do fairly well. You get a bunch of new armor parts here, you can get rewards that can actually lead to better parts, and they don't really interfere with the grind associated with the traditional factions, so you could do this in conjunction with everything else. So if you are one of those people, congratulations, you have an alternative faction that you can grind out. But the thing is, what happens when these factions leave and are no longer accessible? Because time has gone on, and we now have things like the Founders, the Syndicate, the Hyperborea, the Ravagers, as well as just like 15 other smaller kind of smaller seasons going by. Well, the thing is, all these armor parts then are no longer able to be accessed through the leveling system and have to be acquired through the Engineer Badges challenges, which, if you don't know, if you come over here, you can do daily challenges, or sorry, weekly challenges where you can get yourselves a lovely bit of Engineer Badges for doing things like daily challenges, or earning points, or winning battles, or doing wires, things of this nature, plus the additional clan battles here, which if you have a sufficiently good enough clan, you can earn upwards, say, of like 1,000 engineer badges. That's pretty nice. Then you can take it over here and you can get yourself, you know, either a bunch of resources, crates that can go for over 200 coins, or contain an epic part of your desire. But if you miss the seasons here, congratulations, now you have to sit here and grind out for all these armor parts. And the thing is, while these armor parts may not necessarily be quote-unquote the most advantageous things, it's just that some of these parts can be quite good. They could have very idealized stats in terms of just durability to mass ratios, and when you're dealing with clan wars builds where you're maxing out your weight pretty consistently, having the most durability per weight is incredibly advantageous if you want to be able to go ahead and make your card the most powerful possible thing on the battlefield. Now, this may not necessarily matter for lower tier power scores, like if you're below 10k, maybe durability to mass ratio is not terribly important for you, and therefore you probably could get around not using these just fine. There are plenty of other builds that don't use them. But the thing is that when you're starting to deal with things of meta and what is really good, things that tend to win more frequently over than other things, that can parse into that calculation of things becoming pay to progress being so egregious as to be feeling like pay to win. And on top of that, if you notice, each one of these parts is 300 badges a piece, and there are hundreds of parts in here, and they all cost 300 a piece. So you could effectively have tens of thousands of engineer badges having to be sunk into this system alone just to get the armor parts here. And the thing is, if you do that, then you miss out on getting these equipment caches, which give you money as well. So they effectively translate your armor grind that you used to get for free within a season into now a monetary hit to your bank account. And then secondarily too, when it comes to the seasons as well, the seasons tend to really heavily prioritize things that are epic quality, legendary quality, and relic quality. Go anywhere on these trees when it comes to hardware, when it comes to wheels, when it comes to cabins. A lot of these things are going to be epic tier and above, which, you know, makes sense. That's where you can generate the most buzz. That's where you can generate the most excitement, especially for whales of this game that have invested a lot of money. If you want to get them going, you got to make legendaries, you got to make relics. Downside is, though, is then what about everyone else? What about the new people coming onto the scene and they want to try out these things? It's like, oh, I'd love to try out this lovely, lovely Mars cabin, except, oh wait, this thing costs 6.3 thousand coins. Holy bananas. And on top of that, those who are able to participate in the seasons and bought the seasons, congratulations, you usually get the fused versions of these legendary weapons or the fused versions of these hardware modules. These all could contain a small advantage and part of that to the player that, while a normal person could get, would take them a very long time to get, because, hey, say I wanted to craft a Jackie. Well, for one, you have to be here when the season starts or when it actually is here. And if you're not here, congratulations, you don't get it unless some other season down the line offers you a work piece, and maybe you might be able to make it, but that's kind of indeterminate and you don't know when it's going to happen. And on top of that, it also just means these things are hella expensive. Wow, one Jackie, this thing is 3,300 coins. Want to get the fused version? You need 3 of these. You're looking at nearly 9,900 coins to get the fused Jackie, and you might not even get the correct good fused Jackie out of the whole thing. So the thing is that it kind of tackles the issue from both ends, because those who pay just get more and more of an advantage, which is great because it's a double-edged sword. It's great in the sense that the people who pay into it get more bang for their buck, so this game becomes less quote-unquote like expensive in order to pay to progress. But then secondarily, that means if you don't pay, then the power advantage that the paying users get is quite a little bit higher than the non-paying users, so then you kind of create a little bit of a wealth gap, kind of unironically. And then all of a sudden, now you have really well-off, advantageous later game players paired up with people who are just free to play. Then all of a sudden, yeah, you might get a little bit of a weird situation where one might be able to get advantage over the other, at least just with the fused parts. Now, power score-wise, the chances you actually coming across each other are going to be very limited because, again, a lot of these things are epic, legendary, or relic tier, so this usually is reserved for high power score builds like 7k, 8k plus. In fact, when you start dealing with relic tier parts, it's not uncommon to have power scores reach into like the 50,000 range, which if you don't know, that is a lot. So I guess in a quick synopsis, yes, this game is technically not pay to win, but it is still very much pay to progress. And in fact, the pay to progress aspect has probably become more prominent over time now that the introduction of seasons has become, one, FOMO based, time limited, and then secondarily also full of such great value that unfortunately it also makes these things way too hard to pass up. And if you do pass it up, congratulations, you might be kind of at a disadvantage, even if you can still get it yourself. It's just such a huge grind that I feel like increasing the grind is not necessarily the way to go. And in fact, I've railed against these seasonal systems so many times. I've probably done 1,000 videos, and every live stream I do, I basically bitch about it. And I'm always trying to go more towards the idea of getting more accessories. I think accessories are a great way to go ahead and monetize the player base without getting more and more power creep into the fused parts and legendary parts. And you can even do things just like CKs. CKs, they confer no advantage on your build whatsoever. They just look cool. And so a lot of people are willing to pay to make things look cool. Overwatch is a great example. They've done this 1,000 times where all their Mercy skins are like 70, 80 bucks, and people are still willing to buy it. League of Legends has had a Faker skin for Ahri that was like, what, 200 bucks? And he still sold that like hotcakes? So I'm not sure just why Crossout just doesn't go down that route, because at least then you kind of avoid that issue where you make the grind worse and you reduce the FOMO, and instead now you just have prettier looking builds around the place. And it's not like they're trying to sit here and maintain the quote-unquote Mad Max aesthetic here. I'm walking around in a walker here that is reminiscent of Titanfall and has a projectile shield in front of it and a hexagonal pattern here. They're not trying to maintain a Mad Max aesthetic, so there's not that like excuse they could use at all here. I guess the excuse they could use is that we're just not that creative enough here, so we can't really make CKs. And I'm like, bro, you don't really have to even do anything. Just requisition things from the audience or have like an in-game way to import CKs, and you'd probably do just fine, because Dota 2 does that, where they have the workshop where they can go ahead and sit there and make a bunch of skins for the game. They can just import it and pay out based off that. They can have that system and make that system and be able to do that entirely on its own and not have to worry about that whole development process. But I don't know, this is kind of more of a tangent side of things, and maybe we'll talk about that at a later time, because this is already a very long video. So I want to thank you all again for watching this fine, fabulous video. If you enjoyed what you've seen here, follow what platform is your favorite, or on the YouTube and the Twitch. Beyond that, there's also Blue Sky and Discord down below if you want to get notified whenever I go live, as well as join the community. But beyond that, consider becoming a member. It only starts at $1, because why not feed my ego? I am a filthy red panda after all, and that would be kind of a nice thing. But on that, guys, I want to thank you all again, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.